Police expert. War on terror has turned our cops into occupying armies, and we are the enemy. War on terror has essentially turned police into occupying armies in some American communities, said a police and criminology expert. Thomas Nolan, an associate professor of criminology at Merrimack College and former senior policy analyst with the Department of Homeland Security, said the focus of police work has shifted greatly since he was a Boston police officer in the 1980s and 1990s. I remember being drilled into me as a police officer, as a sergeant, and then as a lieutenant. Partnership, problem-solving, and prevention, the 3 Ps, Nolan said Wednesday during a panel sponsored by the American Constitution Society. And then here, the video to that entire panel, it's an hour 45 minutes long, is on YouTube. I'll put the link to the American Constitution Society there, and that's the picture of who we're talking about here, Thomas Nolan. He goes on to say, in the early 2000s, particularly after 9/11, we saw a paradigm shift from community policing and problem-oriented principles to the war on terror, and we became Homeland Security police, said Nolan, who has worked in the federal agency's Office of Civil Rights and Civil Liberties. He said the shift towards Homeland Security has quickly destroyed the relationships police had worked nearly 2 decades to build. If you dress police officers up as soldiers, and you put them in military vehicles and you give them military weapons, they adopt a warrior mentality, he continued. We fight wars against enemies, and the enemies are the people who live in our cities, particularly in communities of color. Everybody. They want to kill everybody. At the same time, domestic police began to focus on Homeland Security. The Department of Defense, coincidentally, began selling surplus military weapons and gear to American police departments without much public debate. We weren't included in the discussion, we didn't know anything about it, and I think Ferguson has brought that into the glare of the public spotlight. The 27-year police veteran said officers make him feel unsafe when he walks around his own diverse neighborhood in Boston. I see the police conducting themselves in a highly militaristic fashion on routine patrol activities. And I know that's what they're doing because I come from that world, Nolan said. What I experience and what people on the street experience is a palpable, tangible sense of fear, and that is that we are unsafe if police need semi-automatic rifles to protect us and to keep us safe. He said Americans have found themselves in danger from their own police officers because they did not object to previous abuses. He said the police response to the Boston Marathon bombing proved the situation can only get worse. What we saw in that aftermath was the unilateral suspension of the United States Constitution, and particularly the Fourth Amendment. We saw for the first time that I can recall in the United States of America house-to-house searches, he continued. And what I said to some colleagues of mine who work in the news media, that when we fail to object to what's going on now, and we did, we forfeited our rights to do so in the future. And we have. I don't agree with that. I mean, I do agree with that, but can object at any time. Any abuse you see, you should object, regardless of what you didn't object to in the past. So, again, he's right. It's only going to get worse. What's it called? Mission creep. They're just going to keep stretching the line until, before you know it, you can't do anything without getting arrested. It's actually pretty close to that right now.